All right. Good morning. Good morning. All right. Good morning. I know this is a Sunday morning. Nobody's really on right now, but I'm gonna go ahead and get started. This is the first. My name's Donavon, by the way. Make sure you go subscribe to the Driving Me Sane show. This is gonna be the first Bible study session that we're gonna do. I'm no preacher or anything like that, but I know how to read and I know how to communicate what I've read. Today we're gonna talk a lot about relationships and trust. Relationships and trust. It's hard to read the Bible, especially from the beginning, and not really learn about those. Now, you're not going to hear or find the word relationship from what I've read in the like what I'm talking about. But when I talk about relationships, the first relationship, and everybody knows the story between Adam and Eve and all of that kind of stuff. But when you dive into that story, when it comes to relationships, the first relationship was between Adam and God, between God and Adam. The first relationship was between God and Adam. And in that relationship, you can learn a lot actually in that one relationship. The first thing you will learn you'll find is about trust. First thing you will learn I want to talk about is about trust. So let me share some, actually, you can already see it on the screen right now. You see this verse, the Lord God planted the garden of the east. So we know about the garden of the east. We know about what God created. And then we get into, he created Adam, basically from nothing. And he commanded to Adam, the Lord gave him this command: you may eat from any tree in the garden, but you must not eat from the tree that gives knowledge about good and evil. If you eat fruit from that tree, on that day you will certainly die. He gave this command to Adam. So the reason why I say first, this is a relationship, right? God and Adam, there's a relationship there, and then there's trust. What I find interesting here is there was no explanation from God to Adam who God was or any of that. There was nothing. There was just, you are here now. This is what your command is. And he trusted. Now, obviously, God knows what's going to happen, but he still, with all that, he still said, I'm putting my trust in Adam. So again, we got the relationship between Adam and God. And then we already have God showing that he already giving us evidence of how to trust, that you can trust someone else. So he's trusting, and guess what? Adam is going to be is trusting that. Okay, Adam Adam. He's expecting Adam to trust what he's going to say, and Adam has to believe and trust that God is telling him the truth. Now, Adam trusted God. Adam trusted God. It wasn't really until, of course, Eve was the snake came to Eve and basically said, do you really believe that all that is going to happen, that you're going to die if you eat from the tree and all that kind of stuff? Eve wanted she wanted more. She liked what the tree looked like. She ate from the tree, but not only did she eat from the tree. Now, again, there's another relationship there. You can trust and things can go good, and you can trust and things can go bad. There was a relationship between Eve and the snake. Now, some people may say, oh, what if Eve did not know? Well, it's clearly she did know, because she told the snake what God had said. And that's why the snake responded with, woman, did God really tell you that you must not eat from any tree in the garden? And the woman answered, no, we can eat from the trees in the garden, but there's one tree we must not eat from. So there's a relationship also between the snake and Eve chose to trust the snake over God. All right. So the reason why I'm bringing up trust and relationships is when it comes to there's a big conversation going on about divorce and prenups and all this kind of stuff. And I posted some things, and a lot of the comments is about protecting yourself. A lot of comments is about protecting yourself, protecting what you have, things like that. So throughout this, I'm going to be connecting the relationships and trust and really just proving. I mean, if God can trust a human, why can't you? Does that mean that you may not get hurt? Sure, you may get hurt, but again, we're going to talk about marriage and all that good stuff as well. So far we talked about the relationship between God and Adam and how there was trust there. God put his trust into Adam. Adam put his trust into God. Then we have the relationship between Eve and the snake. Eve put his trust into the snake over God because she was aware of what God said. So we have that. Next, we have now I want to talk about another verse. Why did God put the tree of good and evil good versus evil, but not allow for them to eat from the tree? This is where free will comes into play. Right? Because when we talk about trust, well, why didn't God just force them to do what he wanted them to do? He gave people free will. This is really the first example of it. He put man on earth and said, you may eat from any tree in the garden, but you must not eat from the tree that gives knowledge about good and evil. So why did he do this? Well, he gave everybody free will. So when you talk about free will, you have a choice. You have a choice. Now, let's talk about the history of prenups. I want to talk about prenups because everybody says a lot of men and women, some women too, but this is, if you look at the history of prenups, it's interesting how it flipped from where it was and how it started versus how it is today, how it's being used today. Prenups were something that came about because women didn't really have any rights. So one of the things I want to talk about is how God punished Adam and Eve, and of course the snake, but how God punished Adam and Eve after they ate from the tree. Oh man, I thought I had this screenshot. Okay, here it is. Nope, that's not it. Okay, so remember when God punished Adam and Eve, there was it was a specific verse about I'll find it and I'm gonna show it on the screen here. Okay, so let me share this. All right. All right. So Adam and Eve, they ate from the tree. God finds out and he says, you did this very bad thing. So bad things will happen to you. It will be worse for you than any other animal. He's talking to the snake. And then I will make you, woman, enemies to each other. So the snake and the woman, your children and her children will be enemies, all that stuff, right? Then he says to the woman, I will cause you to have much trouble when you are pregnant. I highlight that because that's interesting as well. Why isn't birth just some seamless process? Why isn't it just, oh, you want to have a baby, you get one, or you get pregnant, you get one, you have one tomorrow? Why does it take why is it so much pain, right? So this was said in the Bible. This was one of the punishments. Unfortunately, this doesn't mean that women today did anything wrong. No, this is one of the punishments of us eating from that tree. That is one of the punishments, unfortunately. So God is going through some of the punishments and what's going to happen to us. And then he also, let me share this other verse. He said, then the Lord says, okay. And when you give birth to children, you will have much pain. You will want your husband very much, but he will rule over you. All right. So that's what he said. That's what God said to Eve. I will cause you to have much trouble when you are pregnant, and when you give birth to children, you will have much pain. You will want your husband very much, but he will rule over you. This is in Genesis chapter 3. This is in Genesis. God was telling us what was going to happen. He was telling us how men are. He was telling us how that was going to be. So much to the fact of prenups, right? Where did prenups come from? Prenups came from women not having any rights. So they used a prenup, an agreement that says something like, we agree that if we were to divorce, I at least be able to get to keep the house, for an example. Because before, men would just divorce, take everything, because women had no rights. They couldn't work, for an example, or they couldn't do X, Y, Z. That's where prenups came from. Centuries ago, by the way. This wasn't like decades ago. This was centuries ago when prenups came. And so prenups was 2,000 years ago, back in ancient Egypt. All right. So this when it comes to prenups, this is a very, very old school mindset. So I argue to say, why do we still have that mindset today? Why don't we have that trust that God and Adam first started with? How do we lose that trust? Well, in the Bible, it shows we lost it with the devil. So when people argue with me and say, oh, well, Donavon, is not right that I bring in $2 million and this person brings in 100,000 and we divorce and they get half my money or all, whatever it may be. That's not right. Well, why are you thinking like that before you even get married? I would argue and say that if you're thinking that way, you shouldn't get married. Why do you have to put a piece of paper saying that you're married if you have that fear that the person you're marrying, that you're supposed to be putting your trust in, why do you have that fear that the person that you're marrying, that you're supposed to put that trust in, would even do something like that to you? So that's why I connected to the Bible, because if God can trust Adam and Adam can trust God, and Adam did not know who God was. He just gave him that command. The trust really wasn't broken until the devil came and convinced Eve that what God said wasn't true. But the trust started with God and Adam. So Marriage is a choice. You don't have to get married. I feel like when it comes to relationships and love, I think we forget what marriage is. And it says it clearly in the Bible. It says it clearly in the Bible what marriage is. Let's see. Wrong one. All right. So it says it clearly in the Bible in Genesis 2. After God created a companion for Adam, says, finally, one like me with bones from my bones and a body from my body. She was taken out of man, so I will call her a woman. That is why a man leaves his father and mother is joined to his wife. In this way, two people become one. So they use the word wife in the Bible here as a signal of marriage and says, in this way, two people become one. You don't have to get married though. But when you do, you're becoming one, which means if I hurt you, it hurts me too, and vice versa. I trust that we're not going to hurt each other. I also trust that we're human. I trust that we're human. But again, who you date matters, who you marry matters. It's best that you marry a God-fearing person. If you really, really think that they're going to hurt you, think about that. You're dating this person 2, 3, 4, 5 years. Y'all are bonding together, building this relationship. You may even have kids with this person. Y'all getting married. And this person does something so hurtful to you, or whatever it may be, like take money or ask for things that they know they didn't necessarily work for, which is what a lot of people say is going to happen. Or they whatever it may be, they hurt you in whatever way. Nobody's saying that that's not possible, but it has a lot to do with who you choose. All right, this is again, I know this is I was a little bit all over the place, but I'm going to try to sum it up. The point of getting on here today is because a lot of people, to me, mistaken the purpose of marriage. That doesn't mean that me and my wife had it figured out when we got married, because we didn't. We didn't. Um, but as you learn, you spread that knowledge. And as I start to read the Bible, I start to understand more and more how it connects to the reality of life, how it connects to life. So anybody who tries to convince me that a prenup is not a sign of failure, that doesn't mean that prenups don't work. That doesn't mean that there's not marriages out there that last forever. But that is a sign of you think something's going to happen to end this relationship. So I am preparing for it. I'm calling myself smart by preparing for what may come. But what about marriage? This isn't a business. And I've heard people call marriage a business. Uh, and it can sound like it is. If it's a business, it's a nonprofit business. It's not a. This isn't. When you get married, when you choose to get married with somebody, you need to choose the right person, because when you say you're becoming one, your debts are coming together and all that stuff. So you need to make sure you know who you're marrying. You also need to make sure that you understand what that means as well. I think the Bible explains it well when it comes to trust. I think it's in our nature to trust. Doesn't mean that you won't get hurt, but it's in our nature to trust. Sure, if you want to get a prenup, get a prenup. You want to get a prenup, get a prenup. But I do believe that that is a sign that you are preparing for an ending instead of just trusting. And until you have that trust, don't get married.